Stan Gibelisco here. When I got home from my set of daily errands, such as getting groceries, swimming, and doing other things that people do in the mountains in the winter, I found this book had magically arisen from one of the black holes of Dakota Territory, United States of Advertising, and landed in my woodshed. The Homeowners Do-It-Yourself Guide to Electrical Wiring by David Harris. I have several of David's books, and I think this is probably the best I've seen yet, and there's a good reason for it. There's a sore need for this. A lot of people like to fool around with their home electrical wiring without really knowing what they're doing, or particularly the risks and the potential rules and regulations that they're going to have to pay attention to. David Harris, master electrician, is the owner and operator of a residential and commercial construction company. Well, it would stand to reason then that electrical wiring would have something to do with that. But let's just look at the table of contents and you'll find out what's in here. And this is not light reading. This is serious business and it's serious reading. Introduction. Why do you want to do your own wiring in the first place? Well, probably to save money, and maybe because you think you can do it exactly the way you want it. Avoid building fire and shock hazards into your work. Basic rules for impressing the electrical inspector. Well, it's nice, I guess, if the electrical inspector is impressed. It's also very nice if your home doesn't burn to the ground. And I think David Harris can help you do both of those things. That is, prevent your home from burning to the ground. Basic electronics you should know. Well, it's nice to have a little electrical and electronics knowledge before you start to mess around with wiring that could kill you or destroy your property. All about electrical services, then the National Electrical Code. David is very, very heavy on this in all of his books. He goes into considerable detail about all of the aspects that you're going to need to know if you want to do it yourself with your home electrical wiring. Tools for quality electrical work. You don't want to have your tools break on you in the midst of a job, and particularly you don't want to have your tool increase the hazard that already exists whenever you work on electrified or potentially electrified equipment. Techniques for quality electrical work. Lighting fundamentals. Well, now I use mostly light-emitting diode lights. That's the bluish one coming off from the left here. The more orangish one or yellowish one is an old incandescent bulb. Shame on me. But they still exist and they can still serve their purpose. Like burning out when you least expect it. Lighting fundamentals. Appliance failure. What to do when one of your essential appliances fails. You need it. There isn't anybody around to fix it for you. Tackling difficult projects. Data and communications networks. Well, now that's one that everybody's going to need to know about these days, particularly if you have wireless equipment, which can compete with electrical appliances for the signal that your little iPad or whatever ultimately gets. Home automation with a smart home. Backup power systems. Now this one particularly rang my chimes because, and it's page 257 to 261, because one of my really big sore spots is backfeeding generator power into the utility system. And he goes into his take on that by suggesting that you use a transfer switch. Now this is assuming that you're trying to power your whole house up. For me, I just power my ham radios and a few lights and the computers, and I just use extension cords and unplug the extension cord from the wall outlets or the source of utility power when the power fails, and then plug them into the generator, so there's total isolation. But you must isolate your generator completely from the utility system, even when you think the utility system isn't getting any power, because, and he mentioned something very interesting, if you happen to get a generator power leaking back out into the utility line, and it encounters a transformer on a utility pole, normally that transformer transforms the high voltage on the utility lines to the lower voltage to the line that comes into your house. But if that feed goes backwards, it's going to step up that voltage, and you will get hundreds or even thousands of volts on lines that electrical personnel will start to work on, thinking that they're not electrified. There's already been one manslaughter trial having to do with the results of that practice after a hurricane somewhere. I believe it was on the east coast of the United States. Don't take that risk, and he is pretty clear about his way to deal with that if you want to power up your entire home with a generator, which is not a bad idea, especially if you live in a place where the power can fail pretty often, like hurricane zones and even black holes here. It can happen quite a bit. Tackling difficult projects, home automation, alternate power systems such as wind and solar and fuel cells, and what does he think is coming? Smart meter anatomy. He goes into that. They recently replaced my meter with a smart meter. I don't really have any problem with them. It's very nice to know. It's nice if the utility automatically knows if the power has failed at my house, so I don't have to call them up on a cordless phone that probably relies on that very power to work. And when you go through this book, you're going to find some photographs, you're going to find some tables and diagrams, but mostly this stuff is pretty heavy reading, pretty technical stuff. You do want to be a little bit, you want to have your caffeine like your Diet Mountain Dew before you start to seriously read this stuff. But it's really good information for somebody who wants to work on their own electrical wiring. And I will admit with some embarrassment that I've already found several aspects of my own electrical tweaking of my house that David Harris would probably say, you better start reading more of my work, buddy. And I would suggest that to everybody. This is the best book of David's. I have several, as I said, the best that I have found yet, particularly in terms of usefulness. Stan Gibilisco, signing off. Until next time, so long.